Hello, everybody. Never forget. Today, as I'm going through this, it is 9:51 p.m. and Charlie Kirk was assassinated today at a Utah college. And obviously, I don't agree with his politics, but I also don't believe in killing people because you disagree with them, right? There are people throughout the political spectrum who are gun owners, and whoever did this, to my mind, had military background. They were a sniper. 200 yards, 2 football fields away from the stage, shot him in the neck, in the front. There was a canopy over the stage. He was talking about mass shooting as this occurred. And it is suspected that the shooter, hold up, I have to sneeze, pardon me, was on a rooftop nearby. There was no security checking people entering the venue. That being said, it wouldn't have stopped somebody from getting on top of a rooftop on a neighboring building. So when you have somebody that is what you could say a political activist, a polarizing figure, obviously more needs to be done to secure the event, first of all. But these are early reports. I'm sure we're going to find out more later, but the early reports indicate that he had private security and the FBI there at the venue. The footage of him getting shot is pretty horrifying. He more than likely was instantly paralyzed and bled out. I'm not sure if he died on that stage or in an ambulance, but it would have been pretty quick, I would think, based on what I've seen. So, tomorrow, I'm not going to put this out until tomorrow, but tomorrow is the 24th anniversary of 9/11. So let's go through the KROQ coverage of this. Now, what was going on is that twice a year, the main hosts, Kevin and Bean, would take 1 week off. Twice a year. And when they did that, people like Ralph Garman and Doc on the Rock would hold down the fort and play funny recaps of things that had happened throughout the year. They'd play music, and just that would be the remember when this happened sort of week. But all footage of that, not footage, because they weren't I don't think they were filming it. They were just doing it for the radio. The KROQ is an LA station. Was immediately directed to the attack on our nation. And you'll notice that some of the early reports were inaccurate. But let's go through it.
Hey everybody, it's 6:39 here on the Kevin and Bean Show. This is Ralph Garman here with Doc on the Rock, our newsman. If you hadn't heard already, there's been a terrorist act against the United States. Two large commuter planes have been crashed into the World Trade Center approximately 18 minutes apart. We're reporting it live. We have as many details as we have. Doc, what do we know so far?
Well, it's incredible. It was just happening as our 6 o'clock news began. I looked up at the TV screen. I thought it was a high-rise fire. A towering inferno would have been bad enough.
Right.
In the 110-story World Trade Center. Then the word came a plane had struck it. Then 18 minutes afterward, a second plane struck the other tower of the Twin Tower structure, which is like 1,350 feet tall.
Right.
And they say definitely it could not have been coincidence. And now we're learning the disturbing news that a New York to L.A. flight and an American Airlines jet out of Las Vegas were both reported hijacked. And that, well, it's possible that the first plane was a 747, excuse me, but a 757 or an Air.
These were planes that were actually leaving from New York airports, heading to the west. They had a full bladder of jet oil, jet gas, whatever you call it. I don't know what it is, but they were fully loaded, and the intensity of the fire that was created melted the core of each of these buildings.
Bus. We had an eyewitness to this.
Gene Yerman lives in a building near the World Trade Center.
There was this sonic boom, and the TV went out, and thought maybe that the Concorde was back in service, because I've heard about those sonic booms. And I got up to my window. I live in Battery Park City, right next to the Twin Towers, and I looked up, and the side of the World Trade Center exploded.
And then, of course, the stunning, to anyone's mind, occurrence of the second plane, which has been seen on videotape if you're near a TV,
right,
striking the other tower. Casualty estimates can't be made. I noticed that helicopters are not flying around the towers attempting to fight the fires. They say there may be 1,000 people hurt. 6 people are known dead. Of course, the World Trade Center was the scene of the 1993 bombing in the lower part of the building, which was a terrorist act. The FBI is saying this is definitely foul play, not coincidence. George W. Bush has alerted all appropriate agencies of the government. He's in Sarasota, Florida, where he was about to make an education speech when he got this piece of news and said that he had sent the government now on a mission. We can get that tape.
I'll go to help.
You might remember, if you've seen the footage from 9/11, that George Bush was actually reading to a classroom of kids when Secret Service leaned over and told him what was happening and that he needed to leave right away.
The victims and their families, and to conduct a full-scale investigation, to hunt down and to find those folks who committed this act. Terrorism against our nation will not stand. And now, if you join me in a moment of silence.
At the end of which he said, God bless all those who may have been victims of this. I'm just saying a flash on the screen that air traffic out of LAX is going to be delayed until 3 this afternoon, which will affect a lot of people in this area. And of course, that one flight that was apparently hijacked by who knows who, there's been no claim of responsibility, may have been bound for.
In the aftermath of this, all amusement parks were shut down. Stadiums, baseball games, things like that, football games, everything was shut down for, I think, if I remember correctly, it was about 3 days.
LA. The other one may have been out of Las Vegas. At any rate, in a coordinated attack within 18 minutes, 2 aircraft hit the 2 towers of New York's World Trade Center. We haven't heard the last of this.
Now, we heard from CNN, Doc, that one of the planes apparently was an American Airlines Boeing 767 out of Boston as well, one of the other planes.
Okay, that may have been my error that it was a New York-LA flight. It's a Boston-LA flight, you're correct.
Right.
And the other flight apparently may have come out of Las Vegas.
The first plane apparently hitting around the 85th floor, I understand, and the second one on the 65th floor.
Yeah, and that means that
both of those planes originated from the East Coast, but they were cross-country flights, so they had a lot of fuel in them.
The people above are trapped, and the firefighting is hindered because there could be anything else, we don't know what, happening. And also that New Yorkers may not be able to see what's going on. That is where the giant TV transmitters of the New York channels are located.
I know, obviously, all the New York airports have been closed, as well as the Lincoln Tunnel. So New York City, obviously, has just been shut down.
And L.A. people will be very concerned about loved ones who may have been on those flights, either from Vegas or from Boston.
Now, ordinarily, the FBI in this kind of situation, wouldn't they assume, wouldn't their fear be that there could be additional terrorist actions across the United States, not just
Naturally, there'll be a heightened state of alert, but we haven't heard any specifics on that, partly because we're talking to you now. So let me get back to the newsroom.
Okay, thank you, Doc. Well, you've heard it, I'm sure you're seeing it if you're near a television set. A terrorist act against the United States. 2 commuter jets crashed into the World Trade Center 18 minutes apart. One about the 85th floor, another about the 65th floor. People are saying it's the worst terrorist act ever committed against the United States of America. Of course, we will stay on this story. We'll try to get as many more details as we possibly can, and we'll break back in as soon as we know more here on the World.
I think that the answer to that is was the worst terrorist attack since Pearl Harbor, but I guess they're probably not going to categorize that as a terrorist attack. It was part of World War II that the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor.
Famous KROQ. 6:52 here on the world famous KROQ. This is Ralph Garman from the Kevin and Bean Show. Kevin and Bean are on vacation. I'm here with Doc on the Rock, our newsman. Apparently, this act of terrorism against the United States of America has escalated. We have a fire at the Pentagon and another fire at the Washington Mall, as far as we know. Doc, any more details of what's going on?
I was listening to CNN, and I'm trying to cue up a bit of tape in which I don't have time now to do this on the air.
Right.
In which it was described that at the Pentagon, outside Washington, a helicopter was seen circling the building. The witness reported it went down behind the building and he saw a ball of flame. The Pentagon's been evacuated. We don't know the extent of fire or damage there. The fire on the mall in Washington could also have been the product of an airplane. We don't know. We haven't had any reports on that, but that the White House, and the president wasn't there anyway, is being evacuated. To recap, for those of you just waking up, the astounding story that 2 large jet aircraft, apparently hijacked airliners, one out of Boston, one out of Vegas, crashed into the 2 towers of the World Trade Center.
It wasn't out of Vegas. I just want to restate that it was not out of Vegas. These were both flights originating from the East Coast with full bladders of fuel. The third plane that struck the Pentagon, most fortunately, hit a wing of the Pentagon that was actually under construction and nobody was working there. So I don't think we had any loss of life at the Pentagon, and I don't know if the reports of a fire at the mall ever panned out to be something, because it's not something that historically we talk about really, but these were the initial reports as it was happening.
In New York, within 18 minutes of each other, and then we learned that Washington has also been attacked in what is clearly the worst and most coordinated program of terrorism against the United States in history, and no one can do anything but speculate as to the source. We do not have a claim of responsibility. Something from the Mideast, something from bin Laden, or the gang that originally attacked the Trade Center in 1993 is always a possibility.
Right.
But there was no heightened alert, no intelligence briefings indicating something was brewing. And again, we don't know what will happen next, if anything. We do know that now the FAA has ordered a halt to all commercial air traffic in the United States. No planes will leave. Those in the air will land. But that's it till at least 3 o'clock our time today. LAX is going to be closed. If you have plans to travel, obviously they are changed now by forces beyond your control. Casualties, we just don't know.
Hey,
Could be in the thousands in the Trade Center.
We just got some information, and apparently it was a plane that crashed into the Pentagon.
Yeah, well, we had a helicopter as the report. There are two different ones.
Right.
But in any case, an aircraft. As for the fire in the mall, which is near the White House, of course, we can only presume that it has some connection with these other events.
And we have no specific location on where that fire is on the mall, right?
No, not how close to the White House.
You mentioned the White House has been evacuated. The president was...
Pentagon also.
Pentagon has been evacuated also. The president was in Sarasota, Florida when
That's
this all
correct,
happened.
and he already spoke this morning saying the U.S., of course, will do everything it can for the victims and do everything it can to track down and punish those responsible.
And he's
but right
headed
now,
back
we just
to the
don't
White
know
House?
who.
Where would he go if not to the White House? If he's headed back to Washington, I understand.
I would
right?
presume so, though he will probably be at some kind of government command post set up elsewhere.
Doc, let me ask you might know, why the World Trade Center? Why is these buildings the target of such terrorism?
Well, of course, it is a center of international trade, so
Right.
the repercussions around the world of any interruption or damage to the Trade Center. Also, they're the tallest buildings in New York. They're 1,350 feet high.
Biggest targets.
Yeah, and both targets were hit.
Yeah, the attacks that we've had, the big ones. I think there was also one maybe in Washington State or Seattle. I don't know if I can't remember if they actually thwarted it before it happened, but they did come in from Canada because apparently it's easier to cross the border from Canada than it is to come in through Mexico. I can't imagine why, right? But yeah, there was a lot of plotting going on, and the thing is that the World Trade Center and the other building that they were targeting, I think in Washington State, both symbolized capitalism. They both were areas of trade. Now, obviously, these large buildings, they would rent out space to lots of other types of businesses too. But that was their primary focus, right? It was the World Trade Center, And the one in Washington also had something to do with collaboration with other countries, like world leaders, other countries, something like that. But I just don't remember the story on that one as well.
Right. Okay, Doc. Well, I'm sure you'll stay on that story. We're going to try to find some more details as well. You're listening to the world-famous KROQ. It is now 6:55.
Terror from the skies stuns America, and the toll in lives lost, people injured is not known, nor is the source. But here's what happened just a little over an hour ago. A commuter airliner, so it was described, a large twin-engine jet, possibly a 737, crashed into one of the towers of New York's 110-story World Trade Center. 18 minutes later, a second airliner crashed into the other tower. It is burning in the high stories, and apparently putting out that fire may not be possible at present as the terrorist attacks continued at the Pentagon in Washington. An aircraft, possibly a helicopter, circled the building, then dove, and there was a burst of flame.
Speaking to people here at the Pentagon as they're being evacuated from the building, I am told by several people that there was, in fact, an explosion. I was told by one witness, an Air Force senior enlisted man, that he was outside when it occurred. He said that he saw a helicopter circle the building. He said that it appeared to be a U.S. military helicopter and that it disappeared behind the building where the helicopter landing zone is. And that he then saw a fireball go into the sky.
That's the report from Washington. Back in New York, we are learning that two hijacked jets may have been involved in the coordinated terrorist attacks, and that is what they clearly are, according to all government sources. The question is, who did it? And we don't know. The Mideast, always a possible source of terror and trouble, but no linkage yet, no claim of responsibility. As for those airliners, and they were, one may have been a flight from Boston to LAX. The other may have been hijacked out of Las Vegas. That second plane identified as an American Airlines plane. All flights have been suspended in and out of all airports in the United States because of the threat of further terror from the skies. As to other news, not much to say except another Air story. Air Jordan. Michael Jordan may resume.
So Doc misreported that the planes that were already in the sky were given instructions to land. So I don't know that they reached, their actual destinations, or if they were directed to like the closest airport in their vicinity, wherever they were in airspace across the U.S. But they were all, it wasn't just in and out. It was, in was accepted, out was stopped.
Playing in the NBA for the Washington Wizards, and Gary Condit is off one legal hook. A grand jury in Northern California refusing to indict him for attempting to obstruct justice by getting an airline stewardess to lie about their relationship. The Angels, by the way, lost to Seattle, and we will have a partly...
Dude, oh my God, look, I know you're trying to lighten the mood, but he wasn't even the sports guy on the show. I think he didn't last a lot longer than this, quite frankly. I believe he got fired pretty soon. I just don't remember what year it happened.
Sunny day with highs in the 70s and 80s later. 63 at KROQ, Knock on the Rock.
The Kevin and Bean Show. KROQ FM, Pasadena, Los Angeles, LA and Orange counties. Only new rock.
You're listening to the Kevin and Bean Show on the world-famous KROQ. It is 7:04 in the morning. More details coming in about this terrorist attack on the U.S. Obviously, the biggest and best planned terrorist attack ever against this country. They're saying now that the South Tower of the World Trade Center has either collapsed or there's been a second explosion. Doc, do you have any more details?
We are watching a rollback of videotape taken, and apparently the upper floors of that tower are simply gone, whether due to structural damage from being hit by a big airplane, a twin-engine jet at least, or whether due to fire and explosion within. But now it appears in pictures on the television as though there's only one tower, but the cloud of smoke obscures everything. To recap for those who've just woken up, within 18 minutes of each other, two aircraft, hijacked, we presume, by the terrorists, struck the two towers of the huge World Trade Center in New York. Then an aircraft crashed into the Pentagon outside Washington. And we've got one of our Washington...
So, at this point, I have made my son breakfast. We had silence in the morning. I did not flip on the radio until I had dropped him off at school. By the time I dropped my son off at school, he was 6 going on 7. Got him in safely and everything. I flipped on the radio and both towers had already collapsed.
Affiliate stations on the line. Can we talk to Bob there?
We have Bob Waugh from WHFS in Washington. Bob, you there?
Yes, I am. How you doing, guys?
Good, Bob. What can you see from there?
It's pretty bizarre. I mean, I don't know how to describe this except surreal. Came into work this morning, heard about a plane possibly hitting the World Trade Center, turned on the TV, and kind of went about business as usual. Got on the phone with a friend of mine at the Washington Redskins, just trying to get some tickets for this weekend's game, and happened to be driving by the Pentagon at the time that the flume of smoke went up there. So we've, just gone to talk radio as a music station, much like yourselves, and they're just trying to deal with it. It's really pretty frightening.
How close are you to the Washington Mall, Bob?
We're about
5 miles away, but...
So you can see the smoke from there?
See the plume of smoke outside my office window.
Right.
How close is that area in the mall, Bob, if you can hear me, to the White House itself?
The area where the damage happened is actually at the Pentagon, so it's just across the river. Not very far as the crow flies.
Yeah.
Although just a couple of miles.
Yeah, we get that. We have maybe confusion on this. We have two reports of separate fire in the Washington area. The one across the river at the Pentagon, really on the Virginia side, and the other on the mall itself coming up towards the White House and Capitol. I don't know if those are correct or not.
Yeah, that's not something I can see from where I am, but...
Okay, we do know that the White House and State Department office buildings have been evacuated. The president, of course, was in Florida and is racing back to Washington now to help with evaluating what happened. And, of course, the question of response remains moot right now.
Yeah, they said to a large part, if they were to send any military forces into New York and or Washington, it would basically for protection of the population, or so than any kind of response to any potential threat.
City of New York has declared a full terrorist alert. Again, for many people, even the most disinterested, the effect nationwide is that the FAA is canceling commercial airline flights for much of the day. No takeoffs, landings, of course, of planes that are in the air, but to reduce the risk of hijacking, they have to do this. 2 planes were hijacked, one out of Boston, we believe, the other out of Las Vegas, and flown to conduct this coordinated act of terror.
Gosh, it's just, it's just so hard to, listen to him say that over and over again, because it's so wrong. But, basically, when the 2 towers came down, the first responders and the people evacuating that were nearby, but especially the first responders, because they had to go into the wreckage and try and find survivors, ended up with not only traumatic, they needed therapy for many, many years, but they also ended up with breathing disorders as a result of this, from all of the dust that probably had asbestos in it. I'm making an assumption on that one. Gosh, Doc, I wish you had gotten this right.
Terror, and now the horror of the building collapse.
Oh, I should mention that Doc has passed away. He's no longer alive at this point. He was, as you can see, he was already quite old at the time that this happened.
In one of the towers.
Doc, for people who are planning trips today, is it until further notice that the airplane?
I had one flash that LAX would not be handling air traffic till 3 p.m. our time, but that could change. Obviously, we are one-armed paper hangers in our little music station in terms of gathering the news, but we'll keep at it.
Right. We're doing our best to gather the details as they come in. Bob Wah from Washington, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
And good luck. God bless everything that's going on out there.
Thanks.
All right, we're here at KROQ. It's just a horrible thing. You don't realize sometimes you can get a false sense of security being an American, and you think that these kind of things happen elsewhere in the world.
They could have done this any day had they the suicidal, and it obviously was, determination to attack America. And of course, that is, everyone thinks immediately, a characteristic of Middle Eastern acts of terror, but no group claiming responsibility on any source I can get. Now my computer's down on the CNN hard copy channel, so I've got to go deal with that. I hope that's not part of this.
Okay, Doug, we just got some word in. The South Tower, apparently, of the World Trade Center has indeed collapsed.
God help us.
Unfortunately, apparently, they were looking at the videotape. People were seen jumping out of the upper floors as the building crashed to the ground.
The number of people on each floor of those buildings can be in the hundreds, and this is a 110-story structure.
Not to mention whatever smaller buildings would be, to either side of the
Yes,
of the
and
tower.
by the way, another thing that's not happening is trading on any of the New York exchanges for those involved in business.
So the stock market has been suspended?
Yeah.
Okay, we're here at the world-famous KROQ. It's 7:10 in the morning. We are trying to gather details as quickly as we can. We will have more for you when we get back right after this. You're listening to the Kevin and Bean Show here in the world-famous KROQ, 7:18 a.m. For those of you who are just waking up, it's... I can't remember a more horrible story. The United States has been under attack from a terrorist threat. 2 airplanes, large.
This is where I had gotten back into my car and I flipped on the radio and started driving into work. It takes sometimes a while for a traumatic event to sink in. But for those of us who went into work, we realized that we could potentially be a target too. And I think pretty much everybody left pretty quickly after we started seeing it in the break room, on television, and how severe it was.
Commuter jets have been crashed into the World Trade Center approximately 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. The second one about 9:18. Now, apparently, the South Tower of the World Trade Center, the top half of it has collapsed into the streets of New York, as well as 2 other fires currently at the Pentagon, where we've had differing reports, one saying a helicopter, another saying an airplane was crashed into the Pentagon, a fire there, and another fire on the Washington Mall, apparently somewhere near the White House, close enough to have it evacuated at least.
Ralph is Doc on the Rock, and we have another report which can't be confirmed, and it may be confused with the fire on the wall in, on the mall in Washington, and that is the possibility that someone attempted to crash an aircraft into the U.S. Capitol building. However, we're getting no follow-up on that. What I do have is a bit of tape from a CNN reporter in Lower Manhattan covering the crash of the 2 planes which were hijacked from other locations into the World Trade Center's Twin Towers, and then, and this is the most horrifying, I think, in a way, the collapse of one of the towers. At least its upper portion just gave way.
Our colleague Jennifer Westhoven also just arrived. She was closer to the building. I'm just south of Canal Street, about 10 blocks north of World Trade Center. And just before 10 o'clock, parts of the building began peeling away. People started screaming. Jennifer tells me, because she was a little closer to the building, that the police began yelling, "Run, run," and thousands of people started running away from the buildings as they were falling. That was, of course, followed by a onrush of ambulances and special police vehicles. Some people have told us, although I can't confirm this, that dozens of stories of the building have fallen away, maybe down as low as the 30th floor.
And that is more or less confirmed now by all our wire service reports and by the horrifying sight of these 2 huge 110-story office buildings, one of them now truncated. And it looks like there's only a single tower in Lower Manhattan. Who did it is the obvious question. President Bush in Sarasota this morning promising full efforts to relieve the suffering and full efforts to find and punish those responsible. There's talk on various news stations of a possible Palestinian link. No direct claim of responsibility that I have heard, but the U.S. has, well, people who hate us all around the world, and if determined enough to die, you can take way too...
Maybe the early reports did say that because they had their own terrorist group in Palestine, which is Hamas. And the Muslims were sending women strapped with bombs into nightclubs to blow themselves up and get as many people as they could around them. This was going on relatively around the same time period.
Many people with you.
And there's speculation Osama bin Laden also, his name has been mentioned in several news reports.
He, of course, is our bugbear, our bête noire. He has been responsible for acts of terror, the ones in Africa against our embassies, and links also apparently with the original attack in '93, the bomb in the lower portion of the World Trade Center Plaza. People have been tried and convicted and sent away for that. If it's bin Laden, he may have chosen this moment to take the world stage again. If it were Palestinians, of course, it would be extreme groups opposed to peace with Israel and the U.S. involvement. Other possibilities, seem less likely, but we can't do anything but speculate without a claim of responsibility. But whoever had the ability to hijack 2 airplanes, at least 2, possibly more, the flights in Washington, they obviously were determined to make their mark on history and have done so at the cost of untold lives. And the add-on that air traffic in the United States has ground to a halt by order of the FAA to prevent any more incidents.
Right. The immediate local effect here in the Southland, if you're planning to fly this morning, all airplanes have been grounded, at least for the time being. I've heard talk about 3 p.m. perhaps being a time where the LAX might reopen.
That's what they're flashing on the screens for LAX. We've got an anti-terror alert in most of the major cities, in most of the major high-rise buildings. LAPD on tactical alert here.
The Sears Tower in Chicago has been shut down. Several other large buildings also have been evacuated. We just got word that approximately 50,000 people work at the World Trade Center any given day. So no word on how many.
It was 9 o'clock there. Everyone was ready for business.
Apparently,
including the terrorists.
Here in the Southland, LAPD is now on tactical alert. An anti-terrorist unit is being mobilized throughout the city. So apparently there's some real concerns that here in Los Angeles we could be a target as well.
Well, the nation's capital, obvious target to try to strike the major government buildings, all of them, Pentagon, something near the White House or Capitol, and then the World Trade Center as the most visible building in New York and to the world, center of television coverage as well. Obviously, they want to send a message, but other than we hate and kill, there's been no message yet.
Yeah. Duck, if you want to keep looking for details, you can. We have some news audio feed we're going to play here over the air for people to listen to. You can chime in as you like, or you can go back to trying to find more stuff out if you want.
For the moment, in that last attack on the World Trade Center, the terrorist attack for which the attackers were tracked down and convicted and imprisoned, at least some of them, the plan
listening to the best of the Kevin and Bean show here on the world-famous KROQ. The audio you're listening to is Dan Rather over on our sister station, CBS 2. We're giving you the CBS news feed as we get more details about what has happened. If you're just waking up, it's been obviously one of the most horrible days in American history. 2 large commercial jets have been crashed into the World Trade Center. The first one at approximately 9 o'clock Eastern time, around 6 o'clock here. I think at that time, people didn't know whether it was an accident, some horrible navigation problem, or if it was a terrorist act. I think it was quickly understood about 18 minutes later when the second plane plummeted into the second tower.
We haven't seen replays of that tape, Ralph, but it was appalling.
It is stunning to watch. It doesn't even look real. It looks like a movie or something when you're watching it.
Well, you can't outright life.
No. But, I mean, the visual impact of seeing that plane crash into the tower is just stunning. Then shortly thereafter, about 10 o'clock East Coast time, we got word of a fire at the Pentagon, where we've had differing reports, one saying a helicopter. I had an AP reporter as a quote here saying that he saw the tail of a large airliner plow right into the Pentagon. So perhaps it was a plane or a helicopter. Anyway, the Pentagon is a fire to be dealt with there, and we're also getting word of a fire in the Washington Mall as
Again,
well.
Evacuations in Washington of the White House offices, the Defense Department facility at the Pentagon, obviously also the State and Treasury Departments. President Bush, no doubt on board Air Force One now, heading from Sarasota, Florida, back to the nation's capital to help coordinate whatever can be done.
Interestingly enough, the FBI, one of the few public and government buildings in Washington that has not been evacuated, they are staying on full tactical alert. Apparently, there's a section of the FBI building that is bomb-proof, they believe, and that's where they're operating out
New
right
York also has its own bomb-proof action center. L.A. and other cities have these. They don't talk about them much to keep them secure. We do have the statement from the FBI, the earliest statement, that it was no accident when the second plane hit the World Trade Center. They said, this is foul play.
Of course, the FBI is still trying to ascertain who is taking credit for this terrorist act. No one has stepped forward as of yet, as far as we know. As we get more details, of course, we will bring them to you. Doc is working on that as we speak. This is Ralph from the Kevin and Bean.
There's I don't know how true this is, but I saw something on the news years later that Osama bin Laden was watching the coverage of this as it happened and lifting up his fingers. 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know if that really happened or not, but somebody reported that on the news at some point. By the way, that if I haven't already mentioned this, the site of the Twin Towers has been turned into a memorial. My son and I went to go see it in January of 2018, and it's very solemn, very sad. They have the names of the victims all around it.
Show ordinarily, we do a lot of comedy and that kind of stuff here on the show. Kevin and Bean, not today. Kevin and Bean are on vacation. This is would have ordinarily been the best of Kevin and Bean, but we're trying to bring you details as soon as we get them in here at the world famous KROQ. Good morning, everyone. It's 7:33 here on the world famous KROQ. You're listening to the Kevin and Bean show. A little different show today. Obviously, we're not doing much music and talk and comedy like we usually do because just the most horrible day in U.S. history, as far as I can think of. A terrorist attack on the United States. Two commercial airliners have been crashed into the World Trade Center. One around 9 o'clock East Coast time, another one around 9:18, and then another plane or helicopter crashed into the Pentagon. There's a fire in the Washington Mall. And we just heard that one of the South Tower had collapsed at one point. We had just heard now that the North Tower is completely collapsed.
It's incredible to look at the television pictures and see that New York skyline changed forever. Roosevelt's line about a day that live in infamy echoes now, all these years later. Both towers.
The two memorials that they have to these buildings have giant spotlights that light up at night and go as high as what the towers used to be, because there was a lot of talk about, do we rebuild, what do we do? They left it as a memorial because so many people died there, and they have lights representing where the buildings used to be.
Of the 110-story Twin Tower World Trade Center in Lower Manhattan have collapsed due to the damage, I presume, caused by two airliners being deliberately crashed one into each tower within 18 minutes this morning. The toll in human life in those packed office buildings can only be staggering, and we cannot give you any details of whose lives are lost or how many may be injured or the other collateral damage in Lower Manhattan, but it is just absolutely mind-boggling. We also have other reports. If you did not know, the Pentagon was attacked by an aircraft. There was a report of either an aircraft attack or a car bomb at the U.S. State Department offices in Washington. That came through Associated Press. That possibly could be the source of the story on the mall fire in the nation's capital.
Yeah, I would assume that the Charlie Kirk story is going to have a more solid foundation to what it actually happened as time goes on. We'll learn more. We'll figure it out.
Buildings in Washington, Capitol, White House, State Department, all evacuated. Officials saying there may be more terrorist attacks. President Bush says it's a national tragedy and promises to help those afflicted and punish those responsible. We have no reliable claims of responsibility. A little-known set of initials from a Palestinian group is being quoted by one station in Los Angeles, but we don't know if they picked it up elsewhere or if someone telephoned here. Those in the terrorist world and on the fringes of it will play this up to the point where we may have dozens of groups with no connection to these acts claiming they did it to get at what some in the world call the Great Satan USA.
I'm sure we're going to get a lot of false call-in and threats to buildings all over the United States, too, as well, due to this.
That's prompted a heightened security alert at every level of government. LAPD tactical alert. Governor Davis has convened the state's emergency council, seeing what can be done here. Buildings like Chicago's huge Sears Tower and others being evacuated or put on special guard. Though other than evacuation, little can be done against the threat of hijacked aircraft, except to do what the FAA has done, which is shut down commercial.
So basically, this footage does not cover the fourth plane. The fourth plane, I think, went down, don't quote me on this, but I think it went down in Pennsylvania, and it has the story of the passengers trying to overtake the hijackers. And the guy who says, "Let's go." And I don't know if they just made that internal plane conversation up for us to make us feel a little bit better, like that's the American spirit, we fight back, etc. I have no idea. But the fourth plane did go down, I think, in a field in Pennsylvania. And I believe that one was, they suspect, was intended to hit Congress. Later that morning, all of the House of Representatives and the senators all came out, and I think they sang "God Bless America," or I can't remember exactly, but next year is going to be the 25th anniversary of this tragedy, and I don't think, in my personal opinion, that this Charlie Kirk assassination today was not timed to be right before 9/11. Anyway, never forget.